Okay, so are you ready for this?
I think so, yeah, bring it on.
All right, well, today we're diving deep into some seriously big questions.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Life, death, God, reality, the whole shebang.
Whoa. Sounds intense.
It is! We're using Neale Donald Walsh's Conversations with God books for this deep dive. Books 1, 2, and 3 specifically.
Conversations with God. That's a pretty bold title.
It is. These books present themselves as an actual dialogue between Walsh and, well, God.
You're kidding. So like straight up Q&A with the Almighty.
That's the premise. And we're going to pull out the juiciest insights about who we are, what this universe is all about, and how we connect to something bigger than ourselves.
Sounds like a wild ride.
Buckle up, because it
Uh,
is. And hey, we're keeping things engaging, thought-provoking, not just another boring philosophy lecture.
All right, I'm intrigued. Where do we even begin with something this massive?
Well, first off, what struck me was how this communication with God is depicted. It's not about grand pronouncements or burning bushes.
Right, right. Not the Charlton Heston Ten Commandments kind of thing.
Exactly. The books emphasize that God mainly communicates through feeling. It's called the language of the soul. Words are almost secondary, clunky even.
Interesting. So it's less about hearing with your ears, more about feeling with your, well, soul.
Precisely. Walsh describes it almost like taking mental dictation. He'd write down questions and the answers would just flow into his mind.
Like automatic writing, almost, but with divine inspiration.
That's kind of the idea. It really flips the script on how we typically think about God communicating, doesn't it? It's not some external voice booming down commandments. It's about tuning into something within.
Yeah, makes you wonder how often we're missing those subtle messages because we're not paying attention to our feelings.
Exactly. And this whole concept completely reframes how we approach prayer, too. Forget begging or pleading for what you want.
Really? So
Yeah.
what are we supposed to just demand things from the universe?
Not quite. Prayer in this context is all about gratitude, not just for what you have, but for what you desire, even before it shows up.
Wait, so like thanking God in advance for something that hasn't happened yet?
Exactly. It's like saying thank you for this experience that's already on its way. It's about aligning your energy with what you want.
Hmm. Powerful stuff. But what if you express that gratitude and it still doesn't work out? How do you handle that?
It's a good question. I guess it circles back to trusting the process and maybe understanding there's a bigger picture at play that we don't always grasp.
Makes sense. So we're talking to God through our feelings, expressing gratitude. What else?
Well, another huge theme that runs through these books is the battle between love and fear.
Love and fear. Classic dichotomy. How does that play out here?
The books argue that every single choice we make stems from one of these two fundamental forces. And it's not just personal stuff, it's everything from the business deals we make to how we vote to how we treat the barista who gets our coffee order wrong.
Hmm. So if every action boils down to love or fear, that puts a lot of responsibility on us, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It challenges you to really look at the motivation behind your choices. Is it coming from a place of wanting to connect, grow, and contribute? Love? Or is it stemming from fear? Fear of lack, fear of the unknown, fear of losing what you have?
That's a pretty intense lens to view the world through.
It is, but it's also incredibly illuminating. It helps you understand not only your own behavior, but also the motivations behind things happening around you.
All right, so love versus fear, communication through feeling. These are some big concepts already. But what about the really deep stuff? Like, why are we even here? What's the purpose of it all?
Well, the books offer some fascinating answers to those questions, too. They dive into the nature of reality itself, starting with this idea that all that is, the ultimate source, the big kahuna, whatever you want to call it.
Right, the ultimate reality.
Exactly. Well, the books say that all that is actually needed, that which is not, in order to fully experience itself.
That's a bit of a mind bender. How can something that is need something that is not?
It's all about contrast, right? Think about it. You can't know light without darkness. You can't appreciate joy without experiencing sorrow. The not is helps define the is, lets it see itself more clearly.
So in a way, we are the not is that allows God to experience itself more fully.
That's kind of the idea. And this leads to some really interesting perspectives on things like, well, hell, for instance.
Oh boy, here we go. Fire and brimstone, eternal damnation.
Nope, none of that. The books actually redefine hell. It's not some external punishment. It's the internal experience of unfulfillment, of knowing your potential and falling short of it.
So hell is more about regret, a sense of wasted potential.
Exactly. It's the internal struggle of not living in alignment with your true self.
Wow. That's a far cry from the traditional image of hell.
Definitely a different take.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about your soul, that spark of the divine within you.
All right, let's get soulful.
The book suggests that your soul's deepest desire is to express itself fully, to embody its true essence in the physical world.
So we're here to kind of be the best, most authentic version of ourselves.
In a way, yeah. And in doing so, we allow God, or all that is, to experience itself through us. It's like we're each a unique brushstroke on the canvas of the divine.
Makes you feel pretty important, doesn't it? Like we each have a special role to play.
Definitely. And speaking of roles, let's talk about free will. This is something the books are very adamant about. God gives each soul the absolute freedom to choose its own path.
So no puppet master controlling our every move.
Nope. No divine interference, even when we might think we need it.
But what about helping others? If we see someone struggling, shouldn't we step in?
The books encourage helping others, especially when it feels obviously right. But there's a cautionary note. Be careful about imposing your judgments of right and wrong on someone else's journey.
So offer help, but don't be a know-it-all.
Exactly. Trust that each soul is navigating its own path and learning its own lessons. And this brings us to some of the most mind-blowing concepts in the books. The laws of the universe.
Laws, like rules we have to follow.
More like principles that govern how reality works. The first law is this. You can be, do, and have anything you can imagine. Anything.
Wow. Talk about empowering.
Right. The second law is a little less comfortable. It states that you attract what you fear.
So what if I'm constantly worried about money, I'm actually attracting more financial problems?
The book suggests that's exactly what happens. Your thoughts and beliefs, especially those fueled by fear, have a very real impact on your reality.
That's a pretty big responsibility to bear.
It is. But it also means you have the power to change your experience by shifting your thoughts and beliefs.
Makes sense. So be mindful of your fears, focus on love, and imagine your best life.
Got it. But doesn't this sort of contradict traditional religious ideas about God?
Oh yeah, big time. The image of a judgmental God who demands obedience and punishes those who stray. The books throw that out the window.
So no more fire and brimstone.
Nope. Instead, they present a God who doesn't need our worship or service. A God who sees us as inherently perfect and loving. That's a pretty radical departure from what many religions teach.
It is, and it leads to a very different understanding of our relationship with the divine.
So, if it's not about following rules and fearing punishment, what is the path to connecting with God?
The books explore that question deeply. They look at various traditional paths, self-denial, good deeds, even self-indulgence, and suggest that the true path emerges when you let go of the need to control others.
So less about external actions, more about an internal shift.
Exactly. It's about embracing freedom, both yours and others, and living by intrinsic values rather than a list of external commandments.
That sounds a lot more liberating than the guilt trips some religions lay on you.
Right. And even the concept of renunciation, which often sounds pretty harsh, gets a makeover in these books. It's not about denying yourself all pleasure. It's about joyfully letting go of what no longer serves you.
So like if something isn't bringing you joy anymore, just release it.
That's the idea. It's about evolving your desires, not suppressing them.
Sounds healthy. But what about all the stuff we resist in life? The things we just can't stand?
The books offer a really interesting perspective on that. They say that resisting something actually gives it more power in your experience.
Wait, seriously? So the more I fight something, the stronger it gets.
That's what the books suggest. The key, they say, is to truly look at what you're resisting, understand it, and in that seeing, its power over you diminishes.
So instead of battling my fears, I should just acknowledge them.
Exactly. Acceptance is key.
Never thought of it that way. And what about suffering? Is that just an inevitable part of life?
The books argue that suffering isn't inherent in the events themselves, but in our reaction to them.
So it's all about our perception.
To a large extent, yes. We have the inner resources to transform our response to difficult situations, to lessen the pain, but we often don't realize it.
So we have more control than we think. What about relationships? What's their purpose in all of this?
Well, forget those romantic notions of finding your other half to complete you.
Ah, come on. Everyone wants to find their soulmate.
Sure, but these books suggest that relationships are primarily about helping us see and experience who we already are.
So they're like mirrors reflecting back our own selves.
Exactly. And the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself.
Makes sense. You gotta love yourself before you can truly love anyone else.
Exactly. And another radical idea the books put forward, there's no inherent obligation in relationships.
What do you mean?
We often feel obligated to stay in relationships, even when they're not serving us because of societal expectations, guilt, whatever.
Right, right. Duty, responsibility, all that.
But the books say true relationships are based on choice, not obligation.
Interesting concept. Makes relationships seem a lot less heavy.
It does, doesn't it? Now let's talk about something a little more practical. Money.
Okay, everyone loves money, right?
Well, not always. The books address those mixed feelings we often have about money. You want it, but you maybe feel guilty for wanting it.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Like, money is the root of all evil, but I wouldn't mind having a little more of it.
Exactly. The books suggest that this ambivalence leads to inconsistent financial experiences.
So what? I should just embrace my inner capitalist and be done with it.
Not necessarily. It's about examining your beliefs about money. Do you see it as scarce, evil, hard to come by?
Well, sometimes, yeah. Especially when I'm broke.
Well, those beliefs might be shaping your reality, according to the books. The universe responds to your dominant thoughts, remember?
So if I want to attract more abundance, I need to shift my thinking about money.
That's the gist of it. Okay, ready for another mind-blowing concept?
Hit me.
Our purpose on Earth isn't just about achieving worldly success or accumulating stuff. It's about creating with our soul.
Creating with our soul. What does that even mean?
It means using our talents, passions, and experiences to express our deepest selves, to connect with something larger than ourselves.
So it's not just about what we do, it's about why we do it.
Exactly. And here's a cool paradox. When you focus on your soul's purpose, when you cultivate a rich inner life, that's often when worldly success starts to flow more freely.
So stop chasing after material things and they'll come to you.
Something like that. It's about aligning your energy with your soul's purpose.
Okay, so we're creating with our souls. How does that actually work?
The books break down creation into 3 levels: thought, word, and deed.
So pretty straightforward.
It is. Your thought is the initial spark, the blueprint. Your word gives it form, structure, and your deed brings it into physical manifestation.
So I have to think it, say it, and do it.
Basically, yeah. And the universe responds most directly to that initial thought.
Wow. Makes you realize how powerful our thoughts really are.
Absolutely. Now, ever wonder what happens after this life? What happens when we die?
I think everyone wonders about that at some point.
Well, the books offer some comforting insights. They suggest that your mind and potentially your personality continue on after death.
So it's not just lights out.
Not at all. This lifetime is seen as a journey of expressing truth, of experiencing and growing.
So we keep learning and evolving even after we leave our bodies.
That's the idea. And that inherent desire to become more, to expand, is considered part of our divine nature.
Makes you feel less afraid of death, doesn't it?
It does for me, for sure. Another interesting connection the books make is between our inner state and our physical health.
Mind-body connection. We hear about that a lot these days.
Right. And the books take it a step further. They suggest that negative attitudes like conceit, greed, and indulgence can actually create conditions for illness.
Seriously, so my bad attitude can make me sick.
That's what the books propose. They say our thoughts are like magnets, attracting corresponding experiences, even in the realm of physical health.
So positive thinking isn't just some new age fluff. It actually has real-world implications.
Absolutely. It's about being mindful of the energy you're putting out into the world, because it affects you on every level.
Makes sense. Now, what about all those moral rules we live by? Right and wrong, good and bad.
Get ready for a shift in perspective. The books say that, in the absolute sense, those concepts don't exist.
Wait, what? So there's no right or wrong?
Not in the ultimate sense. Those are constructs of our relative world, our human-made systems of understanding.
So morality is just a matter of perspective.
In a way, yes. It's relative to the context. And here's another mind-blower. Our understanding of reality, even of God, is inherently limited.
So we can't truly comprehend the vastness of it all?
Not with our current level of awareness. The God we perceive is the God of our understanding.
Makes sense. We can only grasp what our minds are capable of grasping.
Precisely. And this leads to a whole new understanding of infinity. Forget about limits or boundaries. Infinity, according to these books, stretches in every direction.
So there's no ultimate biggest or smallest.
Nope. No beginning, no end. It challenges our finite way of thinking.
Makes your head spin a bit, doesn't it?
It does. Now let's touch on a subject that's often loaded with baggage. Sexuality.
Ooh, spicy topic.
The books present sexuality as a natural and sacred expression of life force.
So it's not something to be ashamed of.
Not at all. Nothing given by God, including our bodies and their functions, is inherently bad or shameful.
That's a refreshing perspective. I feel like so much of our culture is either afraid of sexuality or obsessed with it in an unhealthy way.
Exactly. And the books point out the hypocrisy of being obsessed with violence while being uncomfortable with love, even in its physical expression.
So embrace our bodies and our sexuality as part of our divine nature.
That's the idea. Now, ever feel like you're alone, like you're not getting any guidance from, well, anywhere?
Oh yeah, all the time. Especially when I'm struggling with a tough decision.
The books assure you that guidance is always available. It's just a matter of being open to receiving it.
So where do we find this guidance?
It can come through anything, really. An inspiring article, a thought-provoking movie, a conversation with a friend, even a random encounter with a stranger.
So pay attention to the signs and synchronicities.
Exactly. And most importantly, listen to your own soul. The fact that you're drawn to these ideas, to this deep dive, means something's resonating within you.
Makes sense. And what about those gut feelings, those intuitive flashes we sometimes get?
The books call those genuine feelings, originating from your soul. They're different from what they call counterfeit feelings, thoughts disguised as emotions, often based on past conditioning.
So how do you tell the difference?
By being present, by observing your feelings without judgment.
Easier said than done. But I get it. It's about being mindful and discerning.
Exactly. Now, what's the ultimate purpose of all this? What's the point of life, according to these books?
Drumroll, please.
It's not about pleasing God or following rules to get into some heavenly afterlife. It's about knowing and expressing who you truly are.
So self-discovery and self-expression are the keys.
That's a big part of it. And in that process, we inherently honor the divine.
And God isn't some dude with a white beard sitting on a throne, right?
Definitely not. The books emphasize that God transcends gender.
So no he or she when referring to the divine.
Exactly. It's beyond those limitations.
Okay, what about sin? Are we all inherently flawed from the get-go?
The books challenge that whole concept of sin as a punishable offense. It's about moving away from judgment and embracing growth and understanding.
So we're not condemned from birth.
Not according to these books. And what about those crazy global events that seem to shake the world?
Yeah, what's the deal with all the chaos and conflict?
What the books suggest, those events are a reflection of our collective consciousness, which at this point is still pretty primitive.
So we're all contributing to the mess, even if we're not directly involved.
That's the idea. Our thoughts and beliefs have a collective impact.
Makes you want to think more positive thoughts, doesn't it?
It does. Now, let's talk about strength. True strength isn't about power over others, it's about power with.
So collaboration over domination.
Exactly. And this requires a deep appreciation of both masculine and feminine energies, not one being superior to the other.
Balance is key, right?
Absolutely. And here's another interesting idea. When you allow yourself to experience pleasure fully, you actually become more capable of giving pleasure to others.
So self-care isn't selfish. It's actually essential for healthy relationships.
That's what the book suggests. It's about operating from a place of abundance, not lack.
Makes sense. If you're constantly depleted, you have nothing to give.
Exactly. And when you truly grasp the concept of interconnectedness, the idea that we're all part of the same fabric of existence.
Right, that we are all one thing.
Exactly. Well, when you get that, harming another becomes illogical because you're ultimately harming yourself.
So love thy neighbor as thyself because they're essentially an extension of yourself.
Precisely. Now, let's talk about how sexual energy is portrayed in the books. It's not just about procreation. It's about expressing love in all its forms. Playfully, passionately, sacredly, even humorously.
Sounds like a pretty expansive view of sexuality.
It is. It's about celebrating the body and its pleasures as part of our divine nature.
And not just focusing on the physical aspect, right?
Right. The books talk about being able to feel a subtle energy connection with another person during physical touch.
So there's more to intimacy than just the physical sensations.
Definitely. And here's a good guideline for navigating social norms. Never hold back from doing something just because it might offend someone's arbitrary sense of propriety.
So don't let stuffy social rules dictate your actions.
Exactly. True values run deeper than fleeting conventions.
Makes sense. Now, what about our minds? What role do they play in all of this?
The book suggests that highly evolved beings maintain a balance between their physical desires, their intellect, and their soul.
So we got to nourish our minds as well as our bodies and spirits.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, modern society often neglects that aspect of our development.
True. It's all about instant gratification, not deep thinking.
Exactly. Now, what do the books say about truly civilized societies? What makes a society evolved?
Good question.
They say it's about resolving conflicts peacefully, living without fear, acting from a place of genuine concern for others, and loving unconditionally.
Sounds like a utopia.
It does, doesn't it? But it's something to aspire to. And they emphasize that the key to creating a better future is through education, especially for the younger generations.
Yeah, got to teach the kids the right values.
Exactly. Now, what about government? What role should it play in all this?
Tricky subject.
The books caution against creating systems that strip individuals of their power and creativity.
So no big brother controlling everything?
Not if we want a truly thriving society. And they talk about the importance of global cooperation to address issues like poverty and inequality, even suggesting the idea of a world federation.
A world government. That's a pretty radical concept.
It is, but they argue that it's necessary to ensure the well-being of the entire planet.
So a shift from national interests to global interests.
Exactly. It's about seeing ourselves as one interconnected species.
Makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest problem facing humanity right now?
Lack of love. The books are very clear about that. It's the root cause of so much conflict and suffering.
And the solution?
Cultivating more love, obviously, and remembering that perfection exists within everything, even if we can't always see it.
So choose love over fear. See the good in everything. Got it. What's the point of it all, though? Why are we here?
The books say we're here to experience, to create, to become. We temporarily forget who we truly are, that spark of the divine, so that we can engage in the joy of rediscovering ourselves.
Sounds like a pretty epic cosmic game.
It is, and it's all about choice. We have the power to choose who we want to be, what we want to experience, what kind of world we want to create.
Empowering stuff. What about sharing? Is that a big theme of these books?
It is. Ideally, sharing should be voluntary, an expression of love and abundance.
So no forced redistribution of wealth.
Not if it can be avoided. But the books acknowledge that sometimes government intervention is necessary to ensure everyone's basic needs are met.
So a balance between individual responsibility and collective support.
Exactly. And another important point, true greatness should never come at the expense of another person's dignity.
So no stepping on others to get ahead.
Nope. It's about recognizing the inherent worth of every individual.
Got it. Now, how do we actually make the world a better place? Where do we start?
By being the change we want to see, the books say, embody love, truth, and your own inherent goodness.
Lead by example.
Exactly. And be transparent in all your dealings. The books advocate for honesty and openness as the foundation of a truly just society.
No more secrets and shady business.
Ideally not. And they highlight the problem of economic inequality, the huge disparities between the rich and the poor.
Yeah, that's a big one.
They suggest limiting excessive wealth and ensuring fair wages as ways to address the issue.
Sounds like a challenge in our current economic system.
It is. And they critique the relentless pursuit of profit at the expense of people and the planet.
So a more ethical approach to business is needed.
Definitely. And they warn about the dangers of technology outpacing our spiritual development.
So all those sci-fi movies about robots taking over.
They might be on to something. We need wisdom to guide our technological advancements, not just greed.
Makes sense. But is there any hope for humanity? Are we doomed to destroy ourselves?
The books offer a glimmer of hope. They suggest that we're being protected in a way, allowed to make our own choices so that our collective consciousness can evolve.
So we have a chance to turn things around.
We do, but it requires a conscious effort. And they remind us that what you think is what you get.
So think positive thoughts, create a better reality.
Got it. What about the role of religion in all this?
Ironically, the book suggests that organized religion has actually created a lot of fear and separation from God.
That's unexpected.
Right. It's like those institutions have distorted the true message of love and unity.
So we need to go back to the source, connect with the divine directly.
That's what the books advocate for, and they emphasize the importance of translating our individual spiritual insights into collective action.
So don't just sit on your enlightenment, go out and do something with it.
Exactly. Now here's a big shift in thinking the books propose. It's not have, do, be, it's be, do, have.
What's that all about? It means your state of being, your inner world, is what determines your actions and what you manifest in your life.
So focus on being the best version of yourself, And the rest will follow.
Exactly. And be sincere in your giving. Don't give to others just to manipulate them or get something in return.
So give from the heart, not from the ego.
Precisely. And allow children to express their full range of emotions without repression or conditioning.
Let kids be kids, basically.
Exactly. And they challenge those possessiveness ideas we often have in relationships, the whole my wife, my husband, my kids thing.
So see relationships as partnerships, not ownership.
Exactly. And they suggest that maybe our modern ways of living aren't so great after all.
What, like living in cities, having separate families?
Right. They point to more communal ways of living as potentially healthier and more fulfilling.
Interesting. So back to the tribe, back to nature.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And remember, separation is the root of suffering. Unity is where the true power lies.
So connect with each other, connect with the divine, and everything gets better.
That's the gist of it. And even the devil, they suggest, is a human invention used to control others through fear.
So no horned, red-skinned guy tempting us to do bad things.
Not according to these books. It's all about understanding the nature of power and how it's been misused.
Okay, so back to the big question. What is God, really?
The books offer a lot of different ways to conceptualize God. A force, an energy, the collective, all that is.
So pick your metaphor, whatever resonates with you.
Exactly. The important thing is to understand the essence, not get hung up on the words.
Makes sense. And what about those people who claim to have met God or channeled divine messages?
The book suggests that there have been many highly evolved beings who've walked the earth, including figures like Jesus, and that there are probably many among us today.
So not aliens, but just really evolved humans.
That's the idea. And the books say that these beings don't just tell the truth, they embody it.
So walk the talk, not just talk the talk.
Exactly. And they point out the hypocrisy of human society, which is often built on secrets and hidden agendas.
So transparency is key to a healthy society.
Absolutely. And in the end, the books remind us that humanity is awakening.
We're waking up to our true potential.
That's the hope. And the purpose of these dialogues, they say, is to open the door to a new experience of reality.
To help us see the world differently.
Exactly. And the truth they offer is the key to creating the life we desire.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
It is. And they end with a beautiful allegory about the little soul and the friendly soul, which teaches us about the purpose of experience and the power of forgiveness.
Oh, that's sweet.
It is. And remember, meaning isn't inherent in events, it's something we assign.
So we choose how we interpret our experiences.
Exactly. And when you look at the stars, you're actually seeing your own past, because time is not linear in the grand scheme of things.
Whoa, mind blown.
It's all about perspective, right? And the way to achieve a desired state of being is to embody it now. Want to be happy. Be happy.
So fake it till you make it.
It's not fake it, embody it. It's about aligning your energy with what you want.
Got it. And truth has this inherent power to resonate with our souls, to awaken us to our true nature.
Exactly. And that's what these conversations with God are all about.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, from communicating with God through feeling, to the choice between love and fear, the power of our thoughts, the nature of reality.
The illusion of separation, the importance of personal responsibility, the possibility of a more evolved way of being.
And we've only just scratched the surface of these books. What struck me most was the message of empowerment, that we have so much more control over our lives and our reality than we think.
It's a huge responsibility, but also incredibly liberating. So here's the question to leave you with. What world are you creating with your thoughts and beliefs? Are you focused on lack and fear? Or are you cultivating love, gratitude, and a sense of interconnectedness? The choice, as these books so powerfully illustrate, is ultimately yours.
If any of these ideas resonated with you, I urge you to pick up the Conversations with God books and explore them for yourself. What stood out to you most from our deep dive today? What questions are swirling in your mind now? That's the real magic of these books. They spark a journey of self-discovery that can lead to some truly profound insights.